Hello, everyone. This is Fahmi from Battery Law Interactive, and we are live in Battery Law in Live, the second episode that we are airing today. And you know that in this show, we are connecting people from all around the world, how their respective industries are being affected by the pandemic, and what their responses are. And we are taking part in some interactive discussions with them, along with our audiences. And tonight, we have two very special guests with us. I'm going to introduce them one by one. And let me tell you about something common about them before we introduce them. They are both taking under like pursuing the entrepreneurship in a segment that is very basic for human being, that is education. So we have two aid entrepreneurs tonight. One is from Bangladesh and one is from the Netherlands. So without further ado, let's welcome our guests. Can I have them on the screen?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. So we have Lucia and we have Mr. Waliullah Bhuiyan. So I'll let you guys introduce themselves, starting with the lady on my right, Lucia.
That's me. Hi, everyone. This is Lucia. I'm the founder of the BD School, and the BD School is Europe's first educational platform entirely dedicated to business development. So we help business developers and entrepreneurs as well to be better at business development, grow their businesses, and eventually be successful with what they like to do.
Thank you so much, Lucia. And Mr. Waliullah, please.
Hi, my name is Wali. I run a company called Lidoco. So basically, what we do is we prepare the children, especially the primary level children, to prepare for the future with the right skills, like creativity, problem solving skill, emotional intelligence, and moral values and ethics. So these are the skills that we provide to the children in Bangladesh and globally.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. Now, moving on to some generic questions, and those who are joining our live show, so don't hesitate to put your questions up there. So no matter when you put them, we'll try to address them one by one during some time in our conversation when it comes. All right. So first question up for you, that we all know that this pandemic has have serious effects in all sorts of businesses and all sorts of activities all around the world, positive or negative. So, in your opinion, I would like to know, in your opinion, what did it mean for the industry of education, especially since you are both doing your ventures in education? So overall, like the whole education industry, how it is like has been impacted? Is it what are the short-term effects and what are the long-term effects? We can start with Wali.
It's a big question, right? So a lot of people already know the answer. So it's depending what you mean by the education sector, right? Like, so in the education sector, you have public sector and you have the private sector. In the public sector, in most of the world, like the schools are closed, so children can't go to school. But since it's a show where entrepreneurs are talking about themselves, so we're private sector. So we see a huge, change in the mindset of the parents and also for the students themselves to adapt to online education and self-paced learning. And also in Bangladesh, like if I look into the other startups in Bangladesh, who are providing online-based learning, is seeing about 40 to 50% growth in the last 2 months alone. We're also seeing that for our case also. But it will be very interesting to see for our country is whether it's a spike, short-term spike during this period, or is gonna be a change in the behavior and perspective about learning and education in the long term. That still we need to see, and so I think that's like a general overview. So we see a lot of positive changes, but there are a lot of digital divide that we are seeing among children who are more from a Waliullah family can afford smartphone, internet, and self-learning opportunities compared to the other children who don't have those.
All right, thanks, Wali. So, Lucia, what's your take on the whole situation?
Yeah, I agree with Wali. So you really have to divide, the private and the public sector, because of course the public sector, especially companies like ours, that were already online based, we actually did experience a growth in most of the cases, which is great for us, of course, but it also says a lot about the behavior of the people, right? So, well, in our case, we do professional education, so we're really into the professional sector, and the fact that so many people, decided to take this type of education right now in this moment really shows the potential of this type of new education, which doesn't need to be necessarily like just, if you think online, just automated courses or these kind of things. Like, these things, I think, will also change a little bit as we go. And when it comes to the public sector, well, of course, there was a huge disruption here in Europe. Most of the countries, of course, had to adapt to online learning, not with zero issues, because countries like Italy, where I'm originally from, or France and so on, they were more traditional. Generally speaking, it's a lot more traditional in the way of teaching. Most of the classes are in person, and it's not very interactive anyways. So when you're at the university or when you're at school, there's a teacher talking to you, and that's pretty much it. So it was really difficult for them to really adapt to this online education. It went pretty fast, and I think that was also really cool because, well, I think online education brings a lot of opportunities for everyone, also for the public sector. Although I'm not sure that only online education for universities, for example, will be the answer. I think you still need a sort of a blended learning, where you can enable students to learn online, of course, so having resources, maybe videos and so on. But I do think you still need some personal interaction. And just as Wally said, well, we will need to see on the long term what's going to happen. But short term, you see that when there is a pandemic like this, suddenly it is possible to teach online also for very old and old-fashioned industries, right? Like universities. So there is a lot of opportunities there, I think.
Yeah, thank you. I also agree with you. Yeah,
just to add to Lucia, I think a lot of universities a lot of private universities gonna go bankrupt next year.
Well, if they don't adapt, for sure. Like, we see it already. In the Netherlands, we had a very big number of inbound students. Especially from Asia, like if I think India or Singapore. And now all these students don't want to come to the Netherlands anymore because, well, probably until the end of the year and beginning of next year, the education will be primarily online. And so if you're a student, international students, and need to move to a country where the cost of living it's a lot more expensive, to still receive online education, well, then, you think twice whether you want to go specifically to the Netherlands or to the online education of the Netherlands or somewhere else. So I do think that universities that will not adapt will have some issues. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic that you have brought it up, because you see, I have seen some for some of my friends who are studying in American schools, like their universities are sending them emails like that we are in fund crisis because of the situation, and it's only like normal because whenever an international student try to goes abroad to do study, for example, in an American or an European university, it's not only education that they pursue. They also pursue the lifestyle. There's to pursue the network. So when we're doing all these things online, so there has the university has a lot of competitors. For example, we can say Coursera, Udemy, and everyone is a competitor, right? So it will be a bit challenging for the private university, as Wally said, and Lucy then followed. So it's gonna be an interesting ride for those as well. All right, so moving to our next topic, that's we have another generic question. It's like change of topic, I would say. We'll come back to this again. So this is the question that our team was wondering, that as both of you run operation of both your respective companies, so we know that it has been a tough couple of months or more for all of us. So in those periods, we know life has been difficult for all sorts of people, but when you have some more people and some more things to take care of, like your brand that you have established after so hardship, so it can get it a bit difficult. Like, you can find it more difficult to wake up and pursue for it every single day from your home. So even if in this situation, in this distress, how did you keep yourself motivated and positive and keep your team members positive toward the work? We're starting with Lucy.
Yeah, cool. Well, in our case, we actually had the team remote already, so it was easier for us to adapt because everything was run online already. We have our social media manager is based in the Philippines, our community manager in Italy, and our content writer is in France. So it was already quite diverse and dispersed in the world. But of course, what happened with the virus was that everybody was a lot more stressed about these situations, right? I remember when Vanessa told us that in the Philippines they were closing everything. Of course, her first priority was to go get food for her family, so she shouldn't have to go every day and so on, right? From my perspective, I think people always come first. So if there is something like that that is a huge reason of stress, that should come first. So in our case, for example, with Isa, we have an arrangement, so the salary always goes every 2 weeks. In this case, we said, look, no matter what happens, we're just going to pay you upfront, so you're relaxed, right? So you can do your things and you don't have to stress out for anything. So from our side, we really tried to respect the moment and the fact that it was very stressful for everyone. So we were not extra demanding compared to the other times. It was in a way business as usual, but with a lot more sensitivity towards this stressful situation. And I have to say, I'm also very lucky because our team is super committed. They're always very proactive in everything they do, regardless whether there is a pandemic or not. So I have to say I'm very lucky already. But of course, the stress of this month, it did bring some, things that were not done perfectly and so on. But again, people come first. So I think as an entrepreneur, whatever you can do to make the life of your employees easier, you should do that. In our case, was really just chill out on everything, do our things, and not add extra stress, which was already too much.
All right, thank you. Wali, on to you.
So the question is about motivation.
Yeah.
So it's the baby, right? Like once you have a startup, it's your baby, and you don't leave your baby in a crisis situation. Rather, you put much harder effort to keep it alive. We're not as lucky as Lucia. So our operation was, I would say, 80% focus on physical world. So we had a kids and after school brand that was the biggest revenue source for us. 8 centers we had to close it down. So our team was fairly large before COVID. We were a 60% team. So what? So once during pandemic, what happened is about 60-70% of your revenue is gone. And then so what we had to do is making sure that how quickly we can shift our business model and operation to online. And that was one. Making a short-term plan for 3 months and mid-term plan for 6 months, and then now working on a long-term plan for 1 year. Also looked at the HR. We had to reduce it down to 1/3 uh, because so what we communicated with the staff is like none of you are gonna let go, but some of you have to take an unpaid leave for a while. And now the remaining team we're pushing hard to generate more revenue so that we can take the others on board as soon as we can. So all these decisions were very difficult for us to take, and as a CEO, that's the hardest decision that you have to make. But we made that, and every day I'm trying very hard so that I can make sure that all the team members can come on board and we can go back to normal uh, in our operation and stuff. So yeah, and what is like the only motivating factor is like for me to keep going is how fast I can take care of my employees during this situation. Employees come first, and then the customers, right? So
Yeah, we know that this is an interesting topic because we know that in terms of economy, in terms of geography, and in terms of politics, so we have like differences in different parts of the world. And like in our previous show, we had a guest from another country in the Europe, and she was complaining that her government is not that much startup friendly because the startups don't get any added facilities, in her words. If you are a startup, you have to fight the big guns, but you don't get any added facilities. So that was her complaint. And in Bangladesh, the situation is like the government is providing aid to some industries, but they are only right now they are focused on the those industries that runs the wheel of the country, like the RMG sector. It's the second largest in the world for Bangladesh. Like we are the second largest exporter of RMG. But in terms of ed or ed tech or tech, I'm not sure whether there will be a big help from the government. But Lucia, did you like the organization that are being affected in your country? Like we know that the tourism industry is gone, the hospitality industry, like and so on and so on. So is your government planning some things for those industries who are in crisis, or they are only focusing on those who are more important to them?
Actually, I have to say I'm very lucky to be in the Netherlands. I think many companies feel lucky to be here. So the government actually has helped a lot of companies already. They injected a lot of money to help many companies. Of course, bigger companies with bigger operations got more money, but that's okay. There is enough for everyone. And generally speaking, the Dutch society is very pragmatic, really a lot. So the approach of the government has always been very open and transparent with the companies. So also in sectors like tourism or the Horeca industry, of course, which is also hardly affected. The government has been very proactive into communicating openly with them and just listening to their ideas, and say, okay, look, guys, you're the ones that run the business, so tell us how you want us to deal with it, because whatever regulation we can put in place, it's not really going to be perfect for you. So just give us your suggestions and then we see what we can do. So the government has been very helpful, not only with companies but also freelancers and so on. So they really helped a lot companies, and it was very timely. So in other countries in Europe, it's not that timely. In Italy, for example, we have an issue that's, like, we've been promised a lot of money, for families, for companies, but nobody's seen this money yet. While here, many companies didn't even have to fire their employees because they actually put up a budget which is only to retain employees, so with some sort of regulations, but it's really meant to, keep the jobs as much as they can. And they did it across industries. So that's great. And the other thing that happened here, which is also, I find it really cool about Dutch society, it's a very resilient society. In general, the country, we're underwater basically, and they created the country out of water, we can say.
Yeah.
So it's a very resilient society. And already from the very first days in which the pandemic started here, there have been really a lot of initiatives to help local businesses, to help businesses get online. So generally speaking, there has been an effort from the government, but also the society, to reduce the impact of the pandemic on all levels. So we've been very lucky here, I have to say.
Thank you. So we're going back to education after this last question about the industry to Wali. Is that the situation that Lucia has just explained, that we have been discussing, that the different policies of different countries regarding to the pandemic to the businesses in it holds. What sort of long-term effect do you think this can have on a country's economy? Because we know that in terms of Bangladesh, we are being one of the rising stars from South Asia, like creating a lot of noise in a lot of sectors and everywhere, giving a run for the money to the Indians and the Chinese at times in some industries as well. So what does it mean for us that we are facing a massive setback, and if we don't get uh, like equal importance to all the business sectors? What can it mean in the long term for our economy?
So can you repeat the question? So the question is
Yeah, sure, sure, sure.
about how the
Yeah,
economy
like
of Bangladesh is gonna impacted by
uh,
COVID, or how the
no, 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 not
education
that.
industry is gonna.
Uh, let's say like you're from education industry, I'm from tech industry, so none of us got any like help so
Mhm.
far, because we are small organizations, of course. So probably some more important organization already got help. I don't know, maybe down the line we will get help, but if we don't get any help, and if organizations like us, small businesses, they don't get the necessary aid that they need to survive right now, like Lucia is getting and the people from her country is getting. So if small businesses or medium-sized businesses, SMEs, they don't get the necessary aid at this time, what impact can it have in a country's economy in the long term?
So like I think about 60 to 70% of the employment happen in the SME sector in Bangladesh, and that's true for all the countries around the world. Uh, so if the SMEs is not functioning well, the economy is not functioning well, right? Um, so that's given. Now the question is like whether the government can support, or like other private sector can support the SME, the banking industry can support the SME. That's a different question. But if they can't, a lot of them will not be operating in short term, and then also in long term, and it's gonna impact the economy. That's for sure. For us, like for you, for like startups and small businesses, for us is, I think we have to plan for ourselves. If we get some support from government or any other private sector, like there are the startup industry in Bangladesh is also very new and young. There are some initiatives being taken to support the startups now. If anyone is getting, that's great, but I would suggest everyone should plan on their own, change their model, uh, so that they can survive in short term and long term. Uh, so yeah,
Okay, got it.
I don't want to give any false hope.
No, 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 it's okay. Thank you. So we'll move back into the education because that's our primary concern today. So we have a question. I have also written it in the private chat for Wali. So it's like about we know that Kids Time is a another initiative or sub company of Light of Hope. As we know, Light of Hope is the mother company. So in Kids
It's
Time,
a
you
yeah,
all right.
it's a
So
brand.
Kids
Yeah.
Time is a brand, yeah. So Kids Time provides different sessions for the patients, the parents to help the mental growth of the children. So we know that, right? Now, the tricky question is, in this pandemic, the parents are being affected more. Like some of them are losing jobs, some of them cannot go to jobs, some of them are about to lose jobs, and some of them are just scared to go out. So in this situation, do you have any plans with Kids Time to address this thing, like the issue with the parents? Because you deal with kids, and I guess all of your target group, they need some sort of approval from the parents or some sort of help from the parents to get on board with you. So how are you going to address this issue that the middleman here that you have in your business is being affected like largely? So how are you going to, are you tackling this, or are you facing anything like this?
So when 8 of our centers were being closed after, so we closed it down for now more than 2 months now. So the immediate reaction, like there are about 500 students in 8 of our centers. So the immediate reaction was how we can actually continue the learning, so that kids can stay at home and still learn the wonderful courses that we have been running in our centers. So we started online show for children daily. Previously, it was a weekly class. Kids used to come into our center and they have gone through different courses. But now we started, like just after the within 2 3 days we decided to lock down. We started online live shows for children, and then within a week we started another show for parents, not just for kids time parents and children, but it's also for everybody else who have basically have an internet access. So we started doing that within a week after closing down. So that was one. what we also did, so we also produce a large amount of ebooks, online content, audiovisual content for children. So we open all of those up. So we made all of our ebooks for free for children around the country to download for the parents. And then we have a platform for parents and teachers to take online courses. So it's a kind of a Udemy for parents, Coursera for parents, where we put different courses for parents, like quality time, spending quality time and stuff like. There are different training for parents. So we also make them free. So during the last 2 months, our target was to make sure that all the kids and parents and children can enjoy all the wonderful learning that they can enjoy at home, and also the other parents and children who were not previously a kids time family, right? So that was the initial reaction. Now what we're doing is like we started planning for live online classes, so small groups, and then started offering online courses for children on Zoom, so which is more interactive. So these are the things that we're doing now. And so like, did I cover? I think like,
Okay,
so
we
yeah.
got.
So these are some of the initiatives that we have taken so far.
All right, I think we have an idea. Okay, my next question would be to Lucia.
So and okay. So
Mhm.
I
All right. So okay. So
so you stopped for
yeah, I stopped for you. Were you gonna
no,
say
go ahead.
something?
Like
Oh, all
I'm
right.
done.
Good. No, you're not done. We only are halfway through, I think. All right. So, Lucia, we have a very interesting question for you. That we know that you teach business development from your organization. So we know that the whole economy is in decline, and we are facing unemployment everywhere. So, what do you think should be the effect on your business? Because is it like very symmetrical with the economy? Because we know by default, if the economy is doing good, then more people are getting jobs. That means more people are getting into work, and more activities and more learning is being, everywhere. So if more learning happens everywhere, that means more business for you, right? So considering the whole economy is in decline, so do you predict that there will be a hit on your business model in the near future or the distance future due to this pandemic?
Well, to be honest, of course, as most of the other things we said before, we never know. So we cannot know for sure what's going to happen. Personally, what I think is that this type of education, which is more professional, and it's really about upskilling yourself so you can be more sellable in the market. I think it has a market on the long term for two reasons. First of all, because business development is a field, it's very broad, very creative, but that means, there are a lot of opportunities, and almost every company in the planet needs to grow. So you want to have someone with this background, with this personality of a business developer. On the other hand, I think nowadays, like especially with the pandemic, people realize the importance of continuous learning, right? Whereas before, when we were always in the office, we would have always the same tasks, always the same activities, and it's very easy, to lose track of your personal development in that case, especially if you work for a company, that is highly demanding and solely focused on the outcome of what you do. Then you're just going to keep doing whatever you need to do to reach that outcome. Namely, in business development, many people confuse it with sales. So you have an army of business developers that is just doing cold calling all day. Well, in an environment like that, it becomes very difficult to focus on your personal development because it's a job that really drains your energy. And at the end of the day, you're just evaluated, with this outcome that you get. Well, what happened with the pandemic is that people suddenly had so much time and they had so much fear of missing out, on these things, that they just said, no, I need to take this. I did the same, I also took courses, I did a lot of stuff, right? So I think this really showed, first of all, how easy it is to gain new skills, because it's really available for everyone at the end. So, and you don't need to take a course necessarily. You can just learn new things, you can watch videos for free on YouTube. So there is really a lot you can do. But I think before the pandemic, we really lost sight of that. We just didn't think it was there. We didn't think it was important, because we were comfortable. We were comfortable in our job, even if it was boring, but it was okay. Well, now people realize that there is actually a lot more to your job, right? There is how you grow as a person together with your job. And I think this is going to make a bit of a shift of mindset in people. So I think more people will adopt this continuous learning, this life learning approach to their job, which means people generally are going to be more skilled for the job market. And the ones that are taking this education, the ones that really realize the importance of personal development, then they're also going to be the ones that are more sellable on the market, which means as soon as the crisis is over and there will be new jobs, and to be fair, there are many companies that are thriving anyway. So, many companies that are hiring. If you're able, to adapt very quickly to the shifts in the market, and you understand that maybe you should learn new skills and just, focus on your personal development, then you can find a job much easier than someone that, is not that flexible mentally. So I think actually on the long term, we're going to have quite some benefit from it, because we're going to have a working class which is more prepared for their job, and that is also a class that it's not going to be shaken by these disruptive events like it happened now, because they realized that you can be comfortable as much as you want, but then a very democratic virus arrives and everyone. So, at some point you need to realize that you can't be stuck on what you do, on the way you think about your business or about your job. You need to be curious. You need to keep learning. And many people realize that now. And I really hope that when everything goes back to normal, people still take the time to improve themselves and not only think about their job as only as the outcome of their activities, but really as the outcome of a personal growth, which goes together with the professional growth.
That's a very interesting angle that you have mentioned, that it will be more competitive, yes, but then again we'll have more skilled workers as well, because people have already gained more skills like regarding the pandemic, because there was nothing else to do, of course.
Indeed.
So yeah, that's a very interesting angle, and on which just to add very shortly, just would you mention some skills for for some generic skills for the fresh grads or some people who are going to graduate soon? So in your opinion, do you have some skills in mind that probably they should really look into this before they graduate?
Absolutely. So, of course, it always depends on what you do, and where your passion lies. My philosophy, and that's also something we tell to all our students, is that you shouldn't be doing a job just because you need a job, but you should choose a job because you really like to do that thing, right? So, given this statement already, I think and I think that's also something Wally is doing really well. We need to focus more on soft skills. Why? Because hard skills, they keep changing, right? There is a hype now with the data engineering and then software engineering, and then there will be AI, deep learning, and so on. But all these technologies change with time, right? So if you really love it, you should go for it. There are many skills that are really requested at the moment, like data analysis, for example. But at the end of the day, what really makes a difference is how creative you are. Creativity is definitely a skill that is highly required at the moment from every side of the business. It's not only about business development, but it's about sales and marketing and also software engineering, because it's more coding, but you need to be creative in the way you think at the product you're building, right? So creativity is definitely one of them. Adaptability is another key skill. In business development is definitely important because we are always, chasing the latest trends and making sure that we grab opportunities. But generally speaking, if you're adaptable, it means that you're not shaken by events like these ones, right? Just as Wally said, like one of their challenges was to, quickly shift their business model so that they could go online and start having new initiatives that could help their customers. So adaptability is a very important skill. And the last one, which is actually a bit related at the end, it's flexibility. Because, well, now we've seen it like with everybody working from home, all the people that were not used to that, they really struggled a lot, right? Because it was just completely different. So you needed to create new routines and so on, which means for some days you didn't really work as efficiently as you would normally, right? And maybe you were more stressed and you were stressed that you wouldn't make it. But if you have these three skills, like whatever happens, then you just become more, much faster in taking decisions, much faster in changing. Therefore, you're less affected when these things happen. So more than the hard skills, I would definitely suggest to all the new workforce, but also, and maybe especially the old workforce, really to work on these three skills. So becoming more creative, more flexible, and generally speaking, more adaptable,
Yeah. So those who are listening to this and are yet to complete graduation are really fresh at work. So I hope you got your pens and papers ready or keyboards and fingers ready. Anyways, Wally, do you have something to add on this? Like, do you feel like there are some more skills that people must have
just to
before they
just
jump
to
into the work?
add few very specific skills beside what Lucy already mentioned. One will be definitely for the marketing people and the business development people, or people who like students who want to develop career in that. You need to learn very quickly the skill of convincing someone over the phone or over a Zoom meeting or over an email, right? Like you're not gonna have a physical meeting to show your PowerPoint presentation and convince your customer, right? Like so that's a very difficult skill set. That is something that like people need to like very quickly learn. People who are in marketing and business development. So that's for sure like communication skill in a different medium, right? But that comes from a point like, okay, you were very good at a physical meeting where you could convince. Now you have to do that on a platform on Zoom or like like on a phone call. But the soft skill part of it, which is understanding other people and communication skill, that remains the same. It's just the medium that changes. So back in 2000, one of the core skill was whether you can use Microsoft Word, right, and can type it properly.
Yeah.
Right now, right now, this is not even considered as a skill, right? Like
it doesn't even exist anymore.
Right. So, so as Lucy mentioned, like use the, like the skill where you learn to adapt to a new technology is something that we have to eventually learn. So which means you have to have very good self-learning skill to learn these new hard skills, and that is soft skill, self-learning skill, right? So adaptability, self-learning skill, critical thinking, problem solving, and communication skills. These are the most critical and most important skills that people should have. Just remember, guys, professional career is usually 40 years long. So you graduate like by the age 25 and then you retire by the age of 65. So that's the 40-year timeline when you're becoming active. And every 5 years, new skills emerge that you need to adapt to. So ideally, someone who is graduating now will be in about 8 to 10 different types of companies and sectors they will be in by the time they retire. So just a thought, like.
Yeah, it's a long time. It's 4 decades. If you now that you mention it, and that's like people like I've seen many people that wondering about. Okay, I have wasted 25 years of my time, like learning just some things, and what I'm gonna do, half of my life is gone. But actually, in reality, if you retire at 65, like traditionally, so you have like 4 long decades, like when you are
So
like
this is
mature.
2020. and then they're going to retire
Oh
in
God.
2060. In
Yeah.
2060, absolutely no idea how the world is going to be in 2040 and then 2060, right? Like,
Now I feel really old now that you have mentioned it. Like I can't imagine myself after 2050. Come on. All right. So thanks, Wally. So I have another question for you. Like it's primarily based on the countries like Bangladesh where the infrastructure is not, that much developed up to like the mark of the developed countries. For example, we have the schools in the big cities and the people living in the big cities. So we don't have any issues like electricity or internet connections or something like that. It is usually good, more or less. So when they moved to online, so they didn't have any problem. But the issue became with the people who live in the rural areas, because we don't have that much of a good, good ISPs. The mainstream ISPs are not there. They're depending on the mobile networks, and the mobile networks are also selective. They also, move around along with their business wherever the network density is high, population is high. They put a tower on it. But generally speaking, there are many areas which are like black zones, dark zones, where the connectivity is not that much strong. So Bangladesh having a lot of villages and a lot of rural areas, how do you think this whole online education or homeschooling system can work from them, or what sort of initiatives can be taken to overtake all this thing? Nothing.
so I'll give some ground reality for this, right? Uh,
Mhm.
so so we've been working with UNICEF and government for a while now for under a national plan of education continuation. So we identified two major way of maintaining the education at home. So one was the internet, and another one was TV channel. So the one of the national TV channel called Chongso TV is assigned to take live classes for children from primary to up to grade 12, right? But only 60% of the households have access to television. And then when it comes to the internet-based distribution of online content, it's about 30% where they have internet connection. Uh, and the rest now we're planning for mobile phone based like learning. So 96% of the household owns a mobile phone, not necessarily a smartphone. So we're like planning for that. The government is also planning for that, but I'm not sure how effective it's gonna be. Like when you have a household who owns a mobile phone, they're not necessarily assigned that phone for their kids learning at a certain point of time of in a day, right? So I don't see any short-term solution for the children to provide online learning uh, in our country. To be very honest, yes, we can, but it's the question of how effective it's gonna be. In mid-term to long-term, I think in the adoption of smartphone and availability of internet, maybe down the road 3 4 years time, online learning will be a bit more mainstream. But honestly, I don't see we can effectively reach out more than 50% of the households at the current situation. Not gonna happen. And then the point comes down to the issue of how aware and educated the parents are to actually, see online class going on and then giving it to the child to see the result. So part of this issue is comes down to the point of aware and educating parents at scale. If we can do that, in like I don't know for how many months we will be closing down our schools in Bangladesh, but I think the primary point should be starting from aware and educating parents, and then thinking about how the parents can help their kids to take all the advantages that are available. But in short term, I don't see any effective solution to reach out to a child in a very poor neighborhood who doesn't have internet connection or doesn't have a TV, which is about 30 to 40% of the households in Bangladesh.
So we have to take it one step at a time, and
Yes.
as from and like uh, approach more realistically, I would say, to the problem, because we cannot like overnight we cannot transform the whole infrastructure. So it's a like process in the making. So I guess we'll just have to go on with it. Okay, change of topic. We're going to have a different topic right now. So my question to you, Lucia, is like, what is the term, school means to you? The very term school means to you. What's the definition of it?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I never really thought of that. So what I can tell you though is that when I was, when we first started thinking about the platform we wanted to create, we really wanted to give it an educational aspect, right? So we didn't want to be just a community. We're very much peer-to-peer based. I'm a business developer. All my team that did some business development at some point. So the community element is pretty much there, but we really wanted to position ourselves as an educational company, right? And this mainly started because of my own, history and what I value the most. And for me, education is a key aspect of life. You need to be learning. So all in all, when I thought, okay, how should we call ourselves? Like, what do we want to be? We said, no, we want to do education. So we want to be a school. And for me, the term school is more like to give it more sort of an institutional, how to say, perception to people, so that they would understand that it wouldn't be only just, posting here and there or sharing some knowledge here and there, but really a place where we create a methodology for what we're doing, right? Because a big problem we had with business development, which is still there, and we're fighting for that, but it's a big field and it requires a long time, of course, and many stakeholders to come together. But the main problem of business development is that it's not really structured. So when students come to us, they sometimes they have a lot of knowledge already, but they don't really know how to use it. So if I think about, I don't know, when I was at the university or when I was at the high school, there was a bit the same. I had these ambitions and I had these talents, that I knew I felt I had, but only the school enabled me to discover these things. So because I went to school, I knew that I really loved to learn languages, for example. Because I went to school, I learned that I really love international. So from the very beginning, the BD school was global, so for me, it's more like, it's really attached to the memories I have to school and how much education it's given me, in terms of personal development and how I could really be in my life. So it was really a way for us to say, okay, we're really here to help you uncover what you have and really enable you to do better things with your life. So school for me, like, it has a lot to do with memories, and really about the fact that it can really enable you to just take what you have already and just take it out, so that you can become a better version of yourself.
So you had your schools in Italy or Netherlands?
I studied in Italy all my life, and I did my study abroad in Germany as well. But yeah, it was mainly Italian education. So pretty much, face to face, just with the teacher talking. But that's okay. I like that too.
All right. So Italy and Germany. So we have Wali, who is from Bangladesh. So we have the same question for you, and this is a special question, as I say. So yeah, we'd like you to share your views on what you think about the term school. What does it mean for you? Uh, can you hear me, Lucia?
Yeah.
I think Wali Bhai's camera is stuck.
Yeah.
His connection has dropped. Okay, he's joining again. Technical issues. Just he will be with us. So in a sec, I guess. No, I think he's trying to connect. Okay, so when he's trying to connect, so let's just move to the next question to you. So I request the team backstage to contact our other speaker to see what sort of issues he's facing. All right. So this is a tricky one because you see, there's this thing that the fundamental clash between an organized education and some organization, some education that are not the traditional like
Mhm.
usual education. Okay, so coming back to that point, because I want to discuss it with you two at a time. So Wally, I
Mhm.
was just coming back to you about the earlier question that I had, that about schools. What does the term school mean for you?
What is school for me?
Yeah.
So it's very simple. So since we work with primarily low level kids, so for our so the term school means for us is a place that helps a child to prepare for the future to become a better human. Uh, so it's not just creating a good student, but also creating a better human being. Uh, that's as simple as that. It's a place that prepares our children for future, and then to be a very global citizen, responsive citizen. That's the role of the school for us.
All right. So
Unfortunately, the term doesn't apply
unfortunately,
to a lot of schools right
okay.
now globally, but that's school for us.
But in this regard, so do you think like the traditional schools that have that the point I was trying to
Yeah.
discuss next, that traditional schools that we have, like normally schools, universities, colleges, like private and public, so on and on, the ones that have been there for centuries, let's say. All right. So we have seen that the modern day workforce needs something more, just not somebody who has like an MBA or a master's or a PhD. They want something else because the world has changed. It has become more competitive. It has become more challenging, and we want more. Yes, there are places for people who are scholars. Of course, there will always be. But then again, the reality is much more different now. We being employers of our like respective
Mhm.
organizations, we know that we need much more than a degree, right? So, do you think there is going to be fundamentally the clash is going to be bigger in the near future between the traditional schooling system and the passive schooling system that we are building, the entrepreneurs like you are building all over the world, that people can get access to? For example, if I have a business developer like who is dropping a CV in my organization and I see the potential, I probably will not care that much where he has studied. Probably, just probably, if he is that good. So that is the harsh reality. But then again, there can be alternate logics as well. So Wally, coming back to you first, that what do you think will be the case after this pandemic has hit us? Because right now, all of us understands that you can study online and you can get qualified online.
Mhm.
So I've been saying this. The COVID is basically a trailer for a bigger movie to realize what's going to happen in the job sector in coming 10, 15 years from now. So it's basically a trailer. It's showing what to expect in the job sector and in the business, right? So, so the whole point of marriage between graduate and employers is a critical thing. Already top 10 companies in the world, including Google, Facebook, they declare that they don't care for degrees anymore. They don't care whether you are a Harvard PhD holder or a college dropout.
Yeah.
But in most cases, organizations, companies, and especially the government sector don't see it that way. They want to have a system to sort the CVs so their job becomes easier to take interviews. With more AI developing, especially in the sector of uh, interview and selection. I think a lot of different solutions are going to come in next 5 years where you don't need to provide your CV and there will be no human who will go through all the CVs to shortlist and do all this stuff that we do now. Until then, you still need to rely on certificates and the whole mind shift that degrees don't matter anymore is going to take some time. So I see after the pandemic, within next 5 years, the value of degrees degrees from is gonna go down by 50% minimum. People are not gonna value anymore. And since I mentioned the professional career is 40 years old, uh, right? Like if you are a young chap now, focus on your skill. Don't bother about like as long as you have a decent CGPA, you should be fine. You should be okay because we also employ people, and I simply don't care about it. A lot of people don't.
Yeah, yeah, that's that's the point. So, Lucia, what do you think? Is the clash going to intensify, and we're going to see the change that has already been in the air, but it is going to be a lot more rapid, in your opinion?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say that I do like education, the traditional education, in the sense that I think there is a lot more than just learning something. I think especially if I think about higher education, if you're at the university, but even the high school, and the primary school, it's not only about learning things, but it's about learning to be with other people, learning to appreciate different things. So it's an ecosystem which I think we shouldn't reduce only to, okay, is the education preparing the future workforce? I don't think the debate should be around that. I think actually private and traditional institutions should work together, because we know how the labor market works. We know what companies are looking for, and we know where the lacks are. And companies like ours, I guess, they're making it pretty much clear, right? So I think we should actually work together to make sure that when you finish the university, you're not completely unaware of what's going on outside, but that you're actually ready to work, and build other skills and so on, which you don't find at the university. And well, that's the specific case of the university. Then it's also very general, because every country has its own education system. Some are better than others. Some do things better than other, and vice versa. So I think it's too general to say there is a clash. But I do think that private and public sector need to work together, because anyways, education as it is needs to be revised. There needs to be changes. It needs to be much more linear. It needs to be adapted to the students of today. It is like if I think about my nephews, like one is 6 years old and the other one is 2. They're always with their phone. So it's unthinkable. Like I cannot imagine them to go to school like I did 15-20 years ago. It's just a different time. So the education sector needs to adapt to this new generation. It needs to adapt to ways of teaching which are different, which are more adapted to the new generation. And they definitely need to work with the private sector. So we should come together, and they should learn the best practices from us. We should learn the best practices from them, because let's not forget that when we're teaching, it's not that we're just talking randomly. There is a science behind that. There are like best practices, there are processes, and the teaching method is something that we can take from the university. But then we should really mix things up, just as it happened now. Like many teachers didn't even know how to turn on a Zoom link. And of course, many students, I guess you also saw so many memes of students just, cheating on the class and so on, which is normal because it's new for everyone. But we need to be honest. Like the world is online, the world is changing, and the traditional institutions need to understand that, and they need to work with the private sector to create a workforce which is able to work in in this new era. Because it's just not possible. Like if I think about, I study international relations, so that was really nothing to do with business, of course. And I see like many of the students, many of the people I studied with at the university, which are 30 years old, they're doing still an internship, and they don't have a clue. And their maximum aspiration is to do another master because they think that is going to enable them to get a job. This is not true. Like another master at the university is not going to help you to get a job. You need to get the skills that the companies want to have. So, and you need to combine the learning experience of the university with a much more practical education, which you can get from companies like ours, which really prepare you for the labor market.
Yeah, agreed. The mix-up is really important. And speaking of which, we are almost at the end of the show, but I'm asking questions to the background team. Do we have any question from the audience that we have not answered yet? Because I feel like we have covered a lot of grounds in 1 hour. So if we have any remaining questions that have not been answered, so this would be a good time to show in the screen so that we could answer those. All right. So while they are putting on the questions, so I have the last question. I kept it for I initially kept it for the end of the show, but as they're taking time in showing the questions, so let's just ask it anyway. So we know that education as a thing, it's changing rapidly, like and the nature has become that it will change very rapidly from now on. So somebody who has aspirations of working as like an ed entrepreneur, like you two, like you both are education entrepreneurs. So how actually do you prepare yourself for something that's that's so volatile and that's changing so rapidly in this new world? And how do you plan that far ahead? And still, how do you have the courage to be in this industry? Because it's it's changing so fast, the dynamics are so great, and the stakes are real high, because it's about the fundamentals of the humans and the society that we create, that we live in. So in this ever changing segment, how do you prepare yourself? So who wants to go first?
Wally, you want to go first?
Okay. So first thing, like if you are up for money, don't come to the education sector. So the only billion-dollar company in the edtech sector is Byju. No, like no other company is like valued $1 billion from edtech sector. So I think like that's one. So it's like if it's for money, don't come to this sector. Second, if you really want to come to this sector, like really prepare yourself first, understand which segment you want to cover. Like there are primary level, secondary level, and then you have tertiary, and then you have life skills, right? Like for the graduation dropouts, or like even for the students who are continuing education in the secondary, tertiary level. Identify which sector, study the market to the sector. So this basically you have to think whether you want to be a content developer company or a distributor company, right? So if you are a distributor, like if you want to build a software, not software, an app that provides learning, like for example, Khan Academy. Khan Academy initially started developing their own content, and then they started to outsource it to a lot of teachers. So they don't need to bother about anymore. So, but they started even 10 minutes school. Initially, they started generating content. So initially, they were a content development company, and then they started focusing on the distribution. And now you have platforms like Udemy, Coursera, who doesn't develop content themselves, rather it's a marketplace of content. So in today's time, it's very difficult to do both, developing content and also becoming a very strong distribution platform through app and stuff. So from a very beginning, you have to identify which segment you want to be in, and
I think Wally is having some connection issues again. Lucia, can you hear me?
I can hear. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just wait for him to get reconnected, I guess. It's showing loading, so well, he's dropped out. I think he'll come back in a minute, just like before. So Lucia, how would you answer this question? Because we have some other questions from the audience as well after to you.
Absolutely. So yeah, the first thing is definitely what Wally was also saying, to really focus on one thing, decide which direction you want to take, stick with it. So that's the first thing. Do you want to offer online education, like live sessions? Do you want to create content? How do you want to set up your company? That's the first thing. The other thing is to really nail a niche as well, like to not have a school that does everything, but really focus on that one thing that you want to help people with. So create an audience around that. Well, in our case, is business development, because I had all the pains of being a business developer, and I wanted to have something like that when I was working. So really nail your niche. And then the other thing is to, because that's something, many people that enter in the, educational sphere, they think that it's just about, saying what you know and tell it to people, right? That's not really education. When you do education, you really need to be very well prepared, in the sense, like when you design a course, when you design a learning journey, there are a lot of things that you need to take into account. Is this going to be engaging for your students? Are your students going to stick with you? Are they going to actually learn something? So there is really all this part of designing the course or the content you want to put up, which is not so random as it could think. And many online companies, you can trust every online company, right? So it's very important that you do this due diligence, that you really create a course with your students in mind. And your ultimate goal, just as Wally was saying, shouldn't be to make money with that, but to really enable people to gain new skills that they can use in their job, in their life, or whatever it is that you're helping them with. But definitely start from this, from this, right? So your ultimate goal should be to provide the best learning experience for your students, so that they can use the skills you teach them. And then the other thing, the last thing, is to really think in terms of outcome. So whenever you're creating a course and so on, what is really the objective of your course, of your education, and try to be as practical as possible, so that when your students come to you, they know what they're expecting, like what they can expect from you, and they can immediately put that in practice in their life, right? So nail your niche, decide what you want, what type of educational company you want to be, have the customer in mind. Your students should always be first. Create learning experiences that are actually helpful for your students, and really focus on the outcome that your students are getting. And everything you do should really be meant to improve this learning experience, because at the end of the day, if nothing happens, if you have a student for 5 weeks and then they didn't learn anything, well, you failed, right? But the good thing is that there is a science behind that. There is a way to design courses. There are many things, many tips that you can take online and so on. So just really do your due diligence, and don't just, start blasting content around. That's not education.
Okay, thank you, Lucia. While he was half finished, I'll get back to him. But before that, a question was popping up so many times. So I just read it out to you. Just answer this first. If Lucia ma'am could choose an alternative career, what would that be and why? Okay, interesting question.
I would like to have my hotel. I would like to have a hotel or hostels, because I really love traveling. I really love tourism, and I really love being in touch with people of different culture, if possible. So I would really like to have my hotel one day.
All
So
right,
maybe
thank
it's
you.
gonna happen,
Yeah, so when it happens, do invite us over. We'll come.
Absolutely.
All right, so what is Wali Bhai's biggest inspiration behind doing the work he is doing on a daily basis? To be more specific, working for the kids. Wali Bhai, why do you work for kids?
So, so this is running the company. I also write children's book and do illustration of the book. So one of the biggest driver of all the motivation behind everyday's work is like when I go to sleep every night, I just close my eyes and realize like today maybe 20 children got hold of my book or our content or our service, and then they have smiled. They have learned something new. We could provide fun and enjoyment. So when I think about that, that gives me motivation to wake up the next morning and do the things that I'm doing now. This the smile of the kids and the happiness, the happy faces of kids that moves me every day.
So smile of the kids. That's a great, fantastic motivation. I'd say that's that's hard to ignore, of course. Fantastic. So we had another question, I think, to Wali Bhai. Okay, no, Lucia, I think. How do you face the challenge of expanding education to the ones who cannot access it online to various circumstances? Well,
Yeah,
interesting. Do you have? All right.
that is definitely a big issue we rapidly touched upon before with Wali, but the thing is that access to internet is not only a problem of Bangladeshans. Unfortunately, we've seen it also in Italy, for example, with so many students were like studying from home. Many of them, they simply couldn't get access to education because they didn't have a laptop. So this is a big issue, and unfortunately, I don't really have like a very concrete answer for that, let's say. But what I can say is that an anecdote about what I thought before, right? So at some point I read on the news that I don't remember if it was Bill Gates or some very rich people. They were like, yeah, we want to grant access to internet to everyone. And back then I was like, but there's so many people that don't have food and they don't have like medicines. Like, I don't know, internet doesn't seem like, like a primary thing, But then I realized, no, it is, because, well, it gives you access to information. It gives you access to so much. And that is really a huge gap which prevents people from creating better lives for themselves. If you live in a place where there is no access to internet, if you cannot know what's outside your reality, you just cannot progress. You just can't. That's a big issue, and that's also why, for like, one of our core values is really to make sure that we are accessible to everyone. Well, the first thing is that we were online from the very beginning, and I'm very proud that we have students from literally every country in the world. Like, we had some students from Kenya, some students from Taiwan, like literally from everywhere in the world. I think, like, in general, like, governments should do more for that, and they should, like, there is a lot happening, of course. I think it's a very big problem for us to tackle. I think we're too small to make a big impact, at least for now. But yeah, that's really something that we care a lot about, because it's the whole idea of education for me is that if you can get educated, then you can really do everything with your life. You can really just expand your mind. It expands opportunities, and it's just sad, that so many people still can't have access to that. And the thing is that, which is something we realized in the very first days of the BD school, is that you don't need to be graduated at Harvard. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be anything. You just need to really, like, want something and just go for it. But then you should be enabled for that. And we need to do something to make sure that more people get access to the information, that they get access to, just to know what's outside, so that they can make up their mind and say, well, guess what? I would really like to become a business developer, in my case, But yeah, that's, of course, a very big issue. So unfortunately, there isn't much I can do now to solve that. Except, to make sure that we're as accessible as possible in the limits of possible.
Just to add to Lucia, I think, like, after independence back in 1971, a lot of focus on the infrastructure development, like especially building road, connecting all the villages, right? For enabling the economic activity. I think in today's reality, the government should spend as much as on the infrastructure as they are spending on road and other stuff, right? So it is as important as that. So instead of, like, I think even like building a school is also as important as like giving accessible internet connection to that locality. It's like as important as having electricity.
Indeed.
Right, like, so.
Indeed.
So yeah,
okay.
and we can't actually, like, being a startup and such a small company. If Facebook, yes, Google, yes, you can ask about, like, giving free internet for everyone, but, like, in our limited capacity, we can't do much.
True.
Yeah, but it's really encouraging that whatever small steps, that baby steps that you are doing from your sectors, because I respect a lot who work in education, because That's what makes us different from all those animals in the world. I mean, they're cute, of course, but we're humans. Anyways,
Absolutely.
uh, so we're moving in the end. So I think there was a question about Wali Bhai's venture, Light of Hope. That how are you different than the other organizations who are working with kids, or like for the betterment of some underprivileged kids, or like some privileged kids as well. So you have worked with a long, huge diversity, as we know. So like, what makes you different from other organizations that are working?
So there are different ways to put it, but just to give you a differentiation factor, is like we are probably the only organization in Bangladesh, a private limited company working with primary level children, and all the other organizations are basically NGOs who are providing free education for underprivileged children. So structurally, we are completely different than rest of the organization working in Bangladesh, especially in the primary level education. Second, we are structured as a company that have a whole 360 solution to make sure that the children have access to you know uh, better contents regarding preparing themselves for future. So we have a wing that develop content. We have a wing that works directly with schools to improve the schools capacity. We have platform to aware and educate teachers and parents. We have our own after school program. So it's like a we created a whole ecosystem. So we call ourselves an ecosystem company that enables a family or a child when they are 3 4 years old, they can enter our system, and then by the time they are 12 13, they can go out of our system. By system means like all the different brands and services that we have created, and by that time, so it's like an 8 to 10 years journey with us. Every child can take. Uh, and everything that we do from a perspective of sustainability in terms of business. So we're not just an organization that providing free education, free learning, free stuff to kids, because we believe preparing children with the right skills is as important as providing it to the underprivileged children and also for the privileged kids. So simply they are going to a top English medium school doesn't mean they are better prepared. They can speak in English better, probably, but they're not learning those skills. So they are as deprived as a kid who can't probably afford food, right? When the question comes down to the point of are we preparing our kids for the future? So we have 30 million kids in primary level education, and we're the organization we're trying to address that situation for all the children. Doesn't matter whether you are a poor kid or you are a rich kid.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, both of you, for such a lively and such educative session. I'd say I have learned a lot personally. I've learned a lot from you too. So I'll just wrap up this session by saying thank you, and I would give you 1 minute each. Wrap up the session to have, if you have any closing words for our fans, the battery low fans, or the company itself, if you want to say anything about us or our fans. And also, if you want any closing remarks you'd want to tell people who are the viewers of the show. Okay,
Yeah,
who wants to go
so I
first?
would add,
Yeah.
I would just add, at the end of the day, like, well, we said it already many times, but I really want to emphasize that education doesn't stop when you finish the school, the normal school. Like, learning is something you do throughout all your life. As Wally said, your career is going to be probably 40 years long. So what do you do for 40 years? You can't just repeatedly do the same thing. So my main piece of advice for everyone at every level is just really embed this life learning approach to your life. Be curious, keep learning at any occasion, and just make sure that you keep progressing personally before anything else. Learning opens your mind, and when you have an open mind, you have a lot more doors open. So just keep learning as much as you can.
Thank you, Lucia. Wally, coming back to you. Anything for our
So
fans or
if you're
anything for the viewers?
so it's already been 1 hour 90 minutes, and if you're still on this show, that means you are already in the right path. Like
True.
you want to learn. So you want to learn. So you're already in the mindset perspective, you're already in the right place. So that's one. Thank you for that. Second is, in today's world, there is so many information, right, available. So one of the best skill for you is to understand and identify what are the best content or what are the best stuff that you can take, because you have a limited time, and you can learn, like, as the time allows, and you really need to look into your own life, uh, before choosing what you want to be or what you want to do in 10 years 20 years time. That's very important. That's very difficult. We also could not do it. I could not do it 5 years, 10 years ago when I was a student, 10 years ago. But now I started to realize how important it is. So do that mind map, uh, and then you will be fine. If you have a curious mind, if you want to learn stuff, you will be fine. You will be fine. Don't worry. Life is fun. Enjoy it.
Yeah, that's about it. So thank you so much. Thank you to you two and everyone who has connected with us. So that wraps up the second episode, and it was the theme was education. And thanks to the finest, one of the finest to the finest entrepreneurs from
Thank you.
ed sector. And see you probably some days later on episode 3. Thank you. Keep your
Thank you,
batteries low.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Bye bye.